This is Reflective Practitioner video number 2 for EDAD 614. This one is about LCFF and LCAP, so Local Control Funding Formula and Local Control Accountability Plan. I'm pretty sure I got those right. So I'm more familiar with LCAP because I have been a part of the writing process for the LCAP. Not the writing process itself, but the stakeholder involvement process as part of committees to get data and feedback and input about how the school and its stakeholders want to spend budgeting and finances towards the school's goals. And I believe the local control funding formula are requirements at the federal level as to what schools have to spend money on for pupil success. In my schools, especially the one I was at before now, Santa Ana, it was very much a collaborative process. The school went to great lengths to involve stakeholder input. It was not a small school, it was a mid-sized charter school. There was around 750 kids, but that was in grades TK through 12. So it was a complete span school. So it was unique in that aspect. But because it was a span school, and although 700 kids seems like a lot, at each grade level there were less than 100. So there was a small community feel to the school, and parent feedback, staff feedback was definitely not only solicited but required. The principal was very much a leader who wanted to be completely transparent and wanted leadership to be distributed, decision making to be transparent and fair, and also be a truly collaborative process. So at my previous school, the LCAP process started with the school site council, and in the school site council, needs and suggestions would be brought up, and inside the school site council there would be an LCAP committee, and the LCAP committees would meet under the auspices of the school site council and make recommendations, and the school site council would essentially approve it for the school to make it a budget item or to provide more allocation of funding. One thing that I found really successful was town hall meeting styles for pretty much all of the LCAP process. Other than the actual SSE, school site council meetings, which had LCAP items and the LCAP committee specifically as individual topics of discussion. All other LCAP meetings were kind of just town hall style. Anyone can come, anyone can provide feedback. The LCAP committee would hold these with regularity during the LCAP process. So I believe there was 3 held throughout the year, and anyone can come and find out information about the LCAP, find out what the LCAP was about, where the spending was going, the reasoning and research and evidence for the spending. So it was a really transparent, collaborative process that I think ingratiated the school with parents. Parents felt like their voices not only were heard, but wanted. And I think that's a big difference. It's one thing to allow people to speak, it's another thing to make them understand as a school that, hey, we not only have to hear you, we want to hear you. We appreciate parent feedback and stakeholder involvement, and we'll invite it constantly. Not only were parents invited, but community members were invited. The school was positioned across the street from a church and a large carpenters union. So 2 big community institutions. We actually even had to use their parking lot due to facility constraints on our end. So we had to have relationships. There was also, a Buddhist temple right down the street. So we invited representatives from all of those organizations to every LCAP meeting, and to even the school site council meetings. And representatives actually did come, not to every single meeting, but during our initial school site council meeting and our initial LCAP meetings. And some of their inputs were, do you guys have funding allocated for parking or a parking structure so you don't have to use our spaces anymore? They were always really gracious to allow us, but it was good to have the community's needs represented. Um, we used a lot of community agencies and organizations, whether it was social work or social, emotional, mental health, welfare organizations. We had a lot of those services on our school site through partnerships. So when we created the LCAP, we knew that was just such a huge need. And while we definitely wanted to, it's always good to use free resources and partner with community organizations, we also saw how necessary it was for us to have our own in-house school psychologists. So it was actually through the LCAP that we were able to provide funding to, in our second year, have a full-time school psychologist instead of a part-time. And we were the only school in the whole charter organization, which was a network of 10 schools, that was able to have a full-time school psychologist. And that was through the governance channels of the LCAP. So, the LCAP is an amazing tool for school governance that is democratic, transparent, collaborative, and fair, in order to ensure an ongoing and continuous cycle of improvement